From 1991 until now, God has been carrying out His work on earth for over 30 years. In this relatively short span of time, God has expressed over 10 million words of truth. In addition to expressing the truth to its fullest extent, Almighty God has also done great things on earth. So what achievements has Almighty God accomplished through His words? God has already made a group of overcomers in China. Almighty God says, "In many places, God has prophesied that He will be gaining a group of overcomers in the land of Sinim. It is in the world's east that overcomers are to be gained." Thus, the place where God sets foot in His second incarnation is without a doubt the land of Sinim, the exact spot where the great red dragon lies coiled. There, God will gain the descendants of the great red dragon so that it is thoroughly defeated and shamed. God is going to awaken these people, heavily burdened with suffering, to rouse them till they are fully awake, and to make them walk out of the fog and reject the great red dragon. They will wake from their dream, recognize the substance of the great red dragon, become able to give their whole heart to God, rise up from the oppression of the dark forces, stand up in the east of the world, and become proof of God's victory. Only in this way will God gain glory. In the book of Revelation, it repeatedly prophesied that God would make a group of overcomers in the last days, who would emerge from the Great Tribulation. Therefore, in the last days, Almighty God has become flesh in the east of the world, in a country that is most resistant to God, China. Ever since Almighty God began His work in China in 1991, God's work has faced condemnation and resistance from this dark and evil world, and endured many hardships. God's chosen people in the Church of Almighty God have faced arrests and persecution by the atheistic Chinese regime, and the opposition and condemnation from Antichrist forces in the religious world. Despite the rampant forces of Satan and their united efforts to resist God's work, all their efforts have been in vain. According to incomplete statistics between 2012 and 2024, 293 brothers and sisters were arrested, persecuted, and martyred by the CCP. Nearly 480,000 people were arrested. Tens of thousands were forced to flee overseas. Among those arrested, countless brothers and sisters endured torture, resulting in disabilities or lasting health effects. Despite this, they didn't deny God's name or betray God. After being released from prison, they continued to perform their duties, spreading the gospel and bearing witness to God in various places. In little over a decade, the gospel of the kingdom has spread throughout mainland China. The words of Almighty God and His name have become widely recognized, and millions of people have come under the name of Almighty God. Within various denominations across mainland China, all who seek truth and sincerely seek God have returned before Almighty God. They have been awakened and conquered by the truths expressed by Almighty God, and have experienced the judgment and chastisement of Almighty God's words, purifying some of their corrupt dispositions and slowly developing a heart that fears, obeys, and loves God. They are a group of overcomers made by Almighty God in China. A group of people united in heart and mind with God, tirelessly spreading the kingdom gospel. The chosen people of the Church of Almighty God are precisely the group of overcomers made by God in China. They voluntarily and wholeheartedly abandon everything to dedicate their minds and bodies to the expansion of God's kingdom gospel. Many brothers and sisters have given up marriages, academics, families, and even promising careers. There are numerous brothers and sisters who willingly forsake their families and jobs, devoting themselves entirely to God. Even many young people have joined the ranks to spread the kingdom gospel and fulfill their duties. They have no complaints and no regrets, dedicating their youth, the best years of their lives, and their entire lifetimes to God. They pursue to fulfill the responsibilities of created beings, to satisfy the Creator, and to live out a meaningful life. These facts precisely fulfill the prophecies in the book of Revelation. These are they which came out of great tribulation, and have washed their robes, and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. These are they which follow the Lamb wherever he goes. These were redeemed from among men, being the first fruits to God and to the Lamb. Although the Church of Almighty God faces the most severe persecution and exclusion in various religious circles and sectors around the world, compared to any denomination in the religious world, the Church of Almighty God has the largest number of people who dedicate their whole body and mind to God. These individuals do not make a single penny, but they willingly sacrifice their lives to dedicate their youth and all to God. Apart from God Himself, who else can gather such a large number of people willing to forsake everything and dedicate themselves wholeheartedly to God? If it were not for God's words and His work, who else could perfect such a group of overcomers? If the church were not led by God Himself, who else could accomplish such great deeds? No one. Only God Himself could accomplish such great work.